Welcome Blenders to another Blender Bytes tutorial. In this tutorial, as you may have guessed, we are going to be creating a hologram, interactive. In this particular case, I'm going to be pulling it out of a tree. Sounds odd, right? Let's get into it. So, what we're going to do is simply go ahead and turn this 50% up to 100%. I'll leave it at about the right, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what frame rate I recorded this particular video at. Check, it's 30 frames per second. Okay, 30 frames per second, I can deal with that. So what you want to go ahead and do is delete that and add in a plane. Go to your top, well, grab your camera, hit Alt-G and Alt-R. So now, if you just pull this up, you can go ahead and delete the lamp. You should, if you just pull it up a little bit higher. Let's go ahead and this skinnier. Ta-da! Okay, so now what you want to do is press N, check background images, add image, open, go to your folder, select your footage. And this is a very, very, very large file, so, well, that went pretty fast. I like to turn the opacity all the way up. And for this particular project, I know I want my start frame to be 1450, and my end frame to be 1700. So I'll go ahead and move way over here. Come on. Find this. There we go. This is my little window. Okay. So if I go to frame 1450, this is being pretty laggy. It's understandable. Okay. So I want to go into edit mode with this cube, or plane actually. Grab these two vertices, press subdivide, and pull them into position. That right there will do for the sake of this tutorial. Just do a little bit of tweaking. You know what? Go big or go home. Let's subdivide the whole area. So now, you can just tweak these little vertices until everything looks about right. I got a little knot hole on my tree right here, so I can work around that. So you can keep tweaking until you get results, something like that. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so now you can go ahead and go back into edit mode, bring this down until the top is fairly flat. Okay, actually, you need to bring both of these down at the same time. I'll bring this one up until it looks about flat. So now you've got things nice and even. So now you're going to want to select these two vertices, hit Control H, hook to new object. So what this did is it added in a little empty here, and when you move that, it moves the mesh. And it did this by applying a hook modifier to our mesh and selecting that particular empty as that. We can go ahead and name this hook 1. I just named it hook 1 because that's what came to mind. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be multiple hooks in this scene, but I mean, honestly, you can name it whatever you want. So now you're going to want to grab this plane and add another modifier to it, a wireframe modifier. And that thickness should be about good. I think what I found is best is 0.04. That may have been a bit much. Let's just leave it at what it was. And then Shift D to duplicate this plane and remove that wireframe modifier. Now, normally in animation, you want to animate the object and then duplicate it, but in my case, that's not very helpful because it's just useless because the empty is hooking both of these objects. So it doesn't matter what order you do those things in. It's easiest to go ahead and do it at the beginning. So that's what I did. So now we can select this one with the wireframe modifier and call it wire. That'll work. I'll select the other one and call it fill. That'll work. And so now essentially what you want to do is, that's odd. Huh. That's strange. There we go. Okay, somehow my things got unaligned. That's odd. Anyways, they're back in order now. So go ahead and rename this fill, since I had to undo that, and this wire. Okay, that's good. So now essentially what you want to do is switch from Blender render to Cycles render, and you want to give all this materials. So go to the node editor, click new, and call this wire material. Okay, since our wire mesh is selected, we may begin creating the material. This is very, very simple. Just add an emission shader, pull that into the surface, and give it this real light kind of hologrammy looking color, turquoise-ish. Now that is all for this particular material. Now you want to select your fill and give it another material like the wire material, but then press the 2 button to separate it. Excuse me. The only difference is going to be that you're going to take this from surface into volume, and that actually makes a pretty big difference. And also you need to change this to 0.004. So now that should be about right. We can give this a quick render. It might take a little minute. I'll go ahead and pause the video, but we'll see. Okay, this is really as far as you need to get into the render, but you can see there's a number of things wrong. Like, you can barely see through this, nothing is producing a whole lot of light, and we just got the boring old sky color in the background. How do you fix that? Well, first of all, you need to go to your render settings, and under film, click transparent. So now, if we split our view here, drag this over, change this to the 3D view. Might take a little minute. Okay. Now press Shift Z, and that will take you into rendered view. So everything looks fine, right? Well, this viewport is not accurate, sadly. So we have to do a couple of things, because this doesn't show scene nodes, and a decent amount of what we're going to be doing is scene nodes. But before we get to those, you might have noticed in my little teaser I uploaded that there is a little button that presses whenever I, press the thing, I guess. But actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to go ahead and animate this thing first. And to do that, you want this to be kind of squished up right here, not really active, just kind of a little glow on the side of the tree for the moment. See if that looks okay. No, not really. See, I didn't get quite this complicated in my original thing, so maybe for the sake of this, something like that. It's not helpful. It'll look a lot better with the glares applied. So that'll do good for this. Now we want to turn on auto keyframing and lock rotation scale. So now we're going to skip to the frame where I put my hand up. I start to throw it over right here. So I'll insert another keyframe right there. And as we scrub through, I'd say frame 1:490 is about where I want it to stop. So I'll just bring this out and let's try clear the rotation. Bring this down. That's about even. Voila. So there is that part pretty much animated. Watch this through. Ta-da! It's pretty good. So now we want to find the frame where I lift my finger up to press the button. That's where I did the little dial thing, and we're not going to do that in this tutorial. You use the same material that I'm going to use for these button presses. And you basically just animate it to rotate as your finger does. But see, this is where my finger first hits. So I'm going to press on my finger right there. Press Shift A, plane. Scale this thing down to about like this. And bring it forward. Pressing G and Z. Let's just go into this view real quick and just bring it up like that. There we go. And now we can add a wireframe modifier to it. Give it a thickness of about 0.08. It needs to be a little bit thicker than some of the other stuff. And that's a little too big. Let's scale this down. Right about there is good. So you want it to be at this size right here and on the next frame as well. But the frame right before that, you want it to be scaled all the way down. And same over here, right after I've pressed. So now if we scrub back to over here and press Alt-A to play, you can see right as I tap it, it does that. And I do actually tap again over here, but you just do the same thing, basically. So now we're going to go to this frame right here, zoom in, press Shift Z, goes to the rendered view. So you can see right now it's got this lame material that doesn't even close to look like a hologram button. So that needs to be fixed. Right? Okay. So get your button back in view. And we're going to give this bad boy a material. Over here. Press New. And you can call this button. And go ahead and rename this thing button. Okay. So now we're going to give this a very, very similar material. Leave it in the surface, delete the diffuse, and add an emission shader. And essentially the only difference between this one and the first material we made is the color. It's going to be green instead. Kind of a lime green with maybe a little bit of blue in it. But no red. Okay? Now, that's pretty much it for that material. I think we want to make this 1.5. I think that's the best number I found. And if we just get to the scene nodes, I think we're almost done. So, to make things perform faster, you can go ahead and press Shift Z and join this area back. Now press Use Nodes and Backdrop. That's going to do a couple things. So you just bring your render layers over here and pause it over here. Press Shift A, Output Viewer. press shift and drag over that, bring it over here and pull it into the image. So now you can see that's as far as we got in the last render, but you can see the last render in the backdrop. So now we can add an input movie clip node, pull in our footage, which is right here. This might just take a minute. Go and add in an alpha over under the color thing and pull this into the top image. Now you can see it goes into our footage. It doesn't look right because at the time of our last render we didn't have transparent turned on and we never let it finish. So now we should be able to save this real quick as hello tutorial. That'll work. Save as Blender file. So now we are safe to give this one more quick render. Pause the video real quick. This can take a minute. Okay, so guys, you can see how this is looking a little bit better, but there's still a few problems. Like, everything looks kind of blocky and bland, and you can barely see the button. And we can fix that really easily with one node. Just add in filter, glare. This does wonders. Add a simple star, and the main thing to change here is the fade. I believe we set it to a 0.782. That's what I found works. So let's do that quick. 0.782. And let me see. I feel like I'm missing something here. Threshold in the mix. 1 and 0. Yeah, that's about right. Oh, I bet I know. We probably got to give this another render. I'll see you guys when that is finished. Actually, no. Okay. Yeah. See you guys when that's finished. Okay, guys. So whenever I did re-render it, it didn't fix the problem. I was like, oh my gosh, why? And I figured out it's because the threshold needs to be set to 0.1, and I believe that the button material should have a higher emission rate. Let's try 5. See if that does anything. Epic. This render might take a minute. Okay, I can also see that a few other changes that need to be made here. The fill needs to have an even lower. So let's try 0.0004. See what that does. Oh. Okay, whereas I can tell that that was way too low to set it, it did help me to see that the button still needs a couple of things. It needs to be thicker and a higher emission rate. So let's go back to the 3D view. Okay, select the button, and let's add another modifier to it. Let's add a solidify. Let's change the thickness to 0.006. Let me see, 0.006. Didn't seem to do much. There we go. Okay, so 0.4 ought to be good. Yeah, that looks about right. Let's see if that's enough. Actually, real quick, we still need to change the emission rate of the fill. So let's try 0.001. Or maybe even 0.0009. Okay, let's render with that. Okay, so I can now see that that still was not enough. So I shall now go back to the node editor, see nodes, actually no, materials, and select fill, and change the strength to 0.002. let's give this another render. Okay, so I do believe that looks good. So now, what we need to do is get out of this rendered view. We've already got our button animated. I believe all that's left to do is render out the animation. So just go to your render settings and press that button. Actually, first you need to change the render settings. AVI JPEG is the one I like to use, quality 100%. Now, animation